Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I want to share with you all of the books I've rated 5 stars so far this year. So this year has really been a phenomenal reading year so far. So much so, I already have 10 books I've given 5 stars, which is really unusual for me for half of the year. Usually I'm like maybe 4 or 5 and I'm like, ooh, I don't know how my end of the year video is gonna be where I talk about my favorite books of the entire year, because I only have like 4 so far, so hopefully I'll read another 4 or 5 that I love the second half of the year. But already in the middle of the year I've read 10 that I know definitively will be on my list, so I'm quite nervous about what the second half of the year is going to hold. Will I have 10 more? Will I have 20 favorite books of the year? Which is not a bad thing at all. But either way, I want to share with you what 10 books I've rated 5 stars so far this year, because they're amazing. I love them and I like talking about them. First, a word from the sponsor of this video, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is an online service for readers. Each month, their team vets hundreds of new titles and select 5 up to 7 of the best new and sometimes early release books for you to choose from. In fact, their mission is to help readers discover new books that they love and to promote the work of emerging authors. You can select 1 book each month or even more, wink wink. And what's awesome, they recently launched their audiobook curation in addition. So you can either pick a physical book that month or you can pick an audiobook, which is pretty freaking cool, because I know there are a ton of people that love audiobooks, because let's face it, they are amazing. I would listen to them more if I had the time, but my 2 kids control what I listen to mostly, and it's not audiobooks, sadly. Now that they offer 2 different formats, members can choose each month whether they want to pick an audiobook, which you can listen to right there in their app, or pick a hardcover. Either way is a win-win. And the price is always amazing for Book of the Month. If you use my code Bookables at checkout, you get your first book from Book of the Month for only $9.99, which is a steal. Run, do not walk to Book of the Month. You guys know I really enjoy them. The 2 selections I picked out this month, the first one I have already read and loved, and that is None of This Is True by Lisa Joel. This is a mystery thriller about a character who kind of becomes the subject of her very own podcast, much to her dismay. It's intriguing, it's full of twists and turns, and I loved it. Very highly addictive, and would make a great audiobook because it has podcast elements into it. So in case you want to listen to it, Book of the Month can get that for you. And then the other one I selected that I'm very, very excited for is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. I have read all of her YA books, and this is her first foray into adult fiction. It's the story of one Dominican-American family told through the voices of its women as they await a gathering that will forever change their lives. I know Elizabeth Acevedo writes beautifully, so you just need to read her work because it's awesome. So I'm super excited about my 2 selections for Book of the Month. If you're interested in learning more about Book of the Month and getting your very first book from Book of the Month, please use the code Bookables at checkout and you can get your first book for $9.99. You won't regret it, I promise. So moving on to the 10 books I have given 5 stars to. Not 10, 5 stars. I've given 10 books 5 stars. That's hard to maneuver. I have them all in the stack. They're not in order. I cannot tell you right now definitively which one is my all-time favorite. I'm not even gonna think about that till December, honestly. Just know all of these I really loved. They're all my favorite. Which one will be number 1? I don't know. Maybe another one will come sweep in at the end of the year. I never know. You never can know when you read books. They surprise you because they're books. So first up on my stack, I think it's probably because it's the smallest one, the paperback one, The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I've been talking to your ear about this, so I'll keep it brief. This is a indie author that's recently started getting her books published by traditional publishers. Avon published this one. It's phenomenal. You need to read it if you love romance. It's a slow burn romance about a girl named Vanessa who's an assistant to a professional football player who is very, very grumpy. Basically, she quits. He ends up at her door and he's like, hey, I'm gonna get deported soon, so I really need you to marry me and I'll pay off your college loans. And she's like, well, that's an offer I can't refuse. And it's a slow burn romance all about the relationship from becoming boss to assistant, friends, confidants, eventually lovers, and it is beautiful. I loved it. God, I can't recommend it enough. Speaking of any romances, I have In a Jam by Kate Canterbury, another one that took me completely by surprise. This one is not so much a slow burn, but it is long. I've learned a lot of indie romances are long. This is about a character, two characters actually, one named Shay, who learns that she has inherited her step grandmother's tulip farm, and she's like, what? But there's some stipulations. She has to be married within a year. She wants to keep it. And, you know, she's like, oh, I just left, like, my fiance just left me at the altar, so I don't know what I'm going to do. And then she runs into Noah, who has the adjoining farm. They went to high school together. Noah has been harboring this crush for her for forever. And he's like, you know what? I'll marry you. You know, it'll be fine. No feelings will come out of it. I'll use some of your farmland. You get to keep your farm. Everything will be easy peasy. Not. Feelings emerge. Things happen. It was steamy. It was cute. And I loved it. Speaking of cute, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is a fantasy, a cozy fantasy, I'll just say. This just reminded me so much of The House by the Cerulean Sea, where there's not a ton of plot to it, but it's just a book that envelopes you into a warm hug, and you don't want to let those books go, you know? You just have such fond feelings of them. This one is about an orc, that's right, I said orc, Viv, that decides she's gonna stop the bloodshed. She's done with her Warcraft days, I mean her hunting days, and she wants to open up her own coffee shop, only, you know, no one's really ever heard of coffee, and it's just about her opening up a coffee shop where she lives in a land where, like, nobody knows what coffee is. Nobody knows that you can go to a coffee place and get, like, cinnamon rolls and have live music, and it's just so freaking adorable that I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I'm sure you've heard a lot about it this year, and I could say, you know, if you just want a good, like, wintry, warm, coffee-loving book with orcs and stuff, I'd highly recommend this one. Then I think I have the very first book I gave a 5-star to this year, and that is the How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I love Grady Hendrix. He's a horror author that writes kind of funny horror, but also freaking scary. This book made me cry of sadness, and then the next page it made me kind of really scared. This is about two siblings, mainly Louise, who learns that her parents tragically died all of a sudden, and her and her brother, who do not have the best relationship, have to go and kind of sell their house. And when she gets there, her mom was this Christian puppeteer, and so she has a lot of puppets, and she notices that maybe the house is not really normal. Maybe some puppets are coming to life, and it gets freaking crazy and creepy, and they should make this into a movie because the freaking puppet pumpkin scared the crap out of me. It also has a lot to do with familiar relationships that I very much resonated with. Animosity with family, also dealing with parenthood, and it was so beautiful that it made me cry, but then also scared the crap out of me, so I loved it. Like, I love Grady Hendrix. There's only been a couple of his books that I haven't enjoyed, but for the most part, I have a great time going into them. And did I ever think I would cry reading a horror novel? No, I did not, but here we are. We have another book that made me cry, Happy Place by Emily Henry. This probably marked like the 5th year Emily Henry has been on my favorites list. I love her adult romances. This one, dare I say, is my favorite, and a lot of people don't like this one. I loved it. This is about a character named Harriet, and Harriet at the beginning of this book is recently broken up with her boyfriend of a very long time named Wynn. They have been together forever, and they were engaged, and then they decided to break up, and they haven't told the really amazing core group of friends. Like, they have this amazing core group, and they're like, we can't tell them. So Harriet decides to go on her vacation that she always goes on with her friends every year to, like, go to Lobster Fest in New England. She's like, I'll tell them there. And when she gets there, surprise, surprise, Wynn and all the other guys are there, and they're like, crap, we can't tell them now, because they also learned that this is their last vacation at this house they've always stayed in, and 2 of their other friends are getting married that weekend. So they're like, we're gonna have to fake being together because we don't want to burst the bubble on this amazing weekend. It's an amazing book about friendships. It's a second chance romance, yes, but I would say the main love I have with this book is the friendship, and how when you get to be in your 30s, a lot of your friendships kind of become not unravel, but they kind of go in different directions because you yourself are going in a different direction. I'm turning 35 in a month, and I have my core group of friends, but sometimes we don't talk as much. Sometimes I think we're drifting, and I just felt very seen in this book, hence why I loved it so very much. Emily Henry just wins my heart with all her romance books. Speaking of winning my heart, The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This is another one that took me completely by surprise. I saw this on NetGalley, and I was like, man, that's a beautiful cover. It's a very short novel, but it packs a very emotional punch. This is about a character named Lucy who At the beginning of the book, she is an assistant to like a kindergarten class, and she really wants to adopt this child that goes to her school. His name is Christopher. His parents died a few years ago, and him and Lucy have shared a bond, and she wants to become his mom. And with that, there's a lot of red tape. She doesn't make enough money. She lives with a whole bunch of roommates. Her car's not reliable. And when all that happens, the state's not always like, sure, you can adopt a kid. It's very much more hard than that. Lucy also has loved this book series called the Clock Island series. Kind of think like a Roald Dahl type of situation, or like a Goosebumps, and she's always loved it. She's made Christopher love it, and then she learns that her favorite author that wrote the series, I forget his name, Jack, decides to make a new book, and he invites like his best fans to come out on the actual Clock Island to have a competition, and whoever wins gets the manuscript of his book, his new book, and they get to decide what they do with it. And Lucy's like, great, I can sell this, I can become Christopher's mom. And it's just about her going to Clock Island, and it's full of like whimsical. It's very much reminiscent of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I loved every bit of it. It's got heartfeltness because Lucy wants to become a mom so bad and adopt this child. It also deals with like your childhood books that you love so much and how you want them to become a reality. It is a book that I think everyone should read, and I think everyone will fall in love with it. I loved it. We have a couple fantasies I read for the sheer fact of TikTok. First one, of course, Fourth Wing. I was really debating, is this a 5-star? Is it not? And then I'm like, you know what? I really enjoyed myself reading this, so why not? Like, why not? Everyone, I'm sure you've heard about it. I made this really long video of if you should read it or not, if you would like it. Worked hard on that video, so go watch it. But basically, all you need to know about this book, it's about dragon riders and how they have to become dragon riders, and it's about a character that's the underdog and steamy times. And if you like probably House of Dragon, or if you like Divergent and Hunger Games but want a little bit more steam with that, this is the book for you. Is it the best world building? No. Does it have the best, most engaging characters? No. Is it highly addictive and reminded me of my time reading Divergent and Hunger Games back when I was 20 something? Yes, that's why I loved it. So no shame in my game, no shame. And the other one I decided to read, because that kind of got me on a fantasy kick, is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I did not think I would love this one as much as I did. Number one, it's freaking huge. Number two, I just didn't know. But it has vampires in it. If you know a keyword for me, vampire. If you don't know, now you know. This one is about a character named Oriah, hopefully I said that right. She's a human living in a vampire world, and she has been raised by like the vampire king. And there's this big competition happening. Njari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself, and whoever wins gets a wish granted by the goddess. And so Oriah enters this competition. She's been training her whole life, and she has to pair up with this other vampire who she does not trust at all. And it is steamy. It is fun. Like, this one is very reminiscent of Hunger Games because you're in this trial, and it is freaking gory as mess. It is vampires, and those vampires are freaking bloodthirsty. So I really enjoyed it. I did read the sequel, didn't love it as much, but man, I love this first one. If you want a good vampire fantasy with the world building could have been a little bit better. Still feel like there was a lot more world building than this one. I loved it. It was great. A great fantasy time. I would highly recommend. I have a historical fantasy, if you will, Wayward by Amelia Hart. Again, another short one. Again, what drew me to this was the cover, because hello, if I could put this as wallpaper in my house, I probably would. But this is about 3 different timelines. 2019, we have a character, Kate, who flees London from her abusive husband. She goes to this wayward cottage. Then we have 1619, about Athla, who's awaiting trial for a murder of a local farmer. And she's pretty much a witch, and her mom taught her all the stuff. Then we have 1942. Violet is trapped in her family's grand crumbling estate. And basically it says, weaving together the stories of 3 extraordinary women across 5 centuries, Wayward is an astonishing debut and enthralling novel of female resilience. And I fully believe that. All 3 of these stories, timelines, are all weaved together. They're all magical witches, if you will. They're all learning about their past while you know, fighting for kind of their lives and what they want to do. And I loved it. It's a short one, but will pack an emotional punch. And my last 5-star I have given out this year so far is The Last One, coincidentally, by Will Dean. This is a this is a thriller novel I picked up. Wasn't expecting much from it. Blew my mind. I loved it. It's about a character, I forget her name because the physical book is not quite out yet, but she is going on a cruise with her boyfriend. Everything's hunky-dory. They go to bed one night and then she wakes up and what do you know? She's alone on this cruise ship. Literally everyone's vanished and she's like, what is going on? And it gets freaking crazy from there. I wish I could tell you more, but that would be spoiling it. This book, you will go in thinking you know one thing about it, but it'll completely obliterate your mind. That's just my opinion. I loved it. I don't know if anybody else does, but I loved it a ton. Would highly recommend it. So there you have all the 10 books I've given 5 stars so far this year. So like I said, 2023 is shaping up to be a pretty freaking good reading year. Like I can only hope the second half of the year will be just as good as this one because I'm stacking these up and I'm like, oh my gosh. These are all amazing. I don't know how I'm going to add any more to this list, but you know what? You never know. I mean, like these, oh, I love them. I love them so much. We'll have to see what the second half of the year holds. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.